Good morning, good morning, good morning. 1 second here while I make a little adjustment. Oh, why am I at the wrong scene? Come on, there we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Yeah, sorry, I had to go grab my tea and my pizza. Not that I have an entire pizza behind me. That'd be a crazy thing to make for breakfast. Who would make a entire pizza for themselves for breakfast? I would never do that. I would absolutely never make an entire pizza for myself for breakfast. Yes. Good morning. Well, good morning, all of you first-time visitors. The pizza is very unburnt. It's very unburnt. It looks very pretty and soft and squishy and delicious. Not that there's a pizza, because who would have a pizza this early in the morning? Definitely not me. I don't have pizza for breakfast. Do you have pizza for breakfast? Oh, that's crazy. I can't imagine possibly wanting to do that. Not me. You know, you can't eat it. There's no pizza. Goofy. So, y'all, I went to Helheim Lynx's stream the other day. Well, like after my stream, because I was trying to figure out my audio issue, which is still going on, by the way. And I just, go in, sub, and I'm going to leave, and they go, everybody, it's my friend Gene. And go check them out. They are very sweet and lovely VTuber. And I'm like, gasp. Because they're larger than I am. But they're also very cool. If you haven't seen them before, we should definitely go see them. They're a femboy succubus VTuber, which they do a lot of stories about their work in sex work. So if you like the stories, it's absolutely fantastic. Good streamer. Very, very kind, loving community. They're great. Yes, Helheim Links. Hootie Hoot VT. I have seen Hootie Hoot VT, I think. Maybe. We'll see. Let's see. Good morning, Wolfos. Thank you for getting first. Good morning, Zenex. Thank you for getting second. Good morning, Spooky Cats. Thank you for getting third. And now a good morning to everybody who's checked in. Good morning, Wolfos and Spooky and Humania. Good morning, Buttertub and Goblin King and Tiny Tay. Good morning, Asher and Gade and Onyx. Good morning, Gabriella, Gay Frogs. Hi, Gay Frogs. Been a little bit. Hello, Crab Puff. Oh, how's the rest of your stream? I hope it went well. Good morning, Kelly Cows. Good morning. You need more than coffee for breakfast. Coffee on an empty stomach is not good. Good morning, Nat. Good morning, the Soul Keeper. Good morning, Cowbob and Unicorn Tamer and Aria. Morning, M. D-Die. Dear. Good morning, Rixel. Good morning, Evie. Good morning, Chicken Witch and Nimbus. Good morning, Vlogs. Oh, I'm getting head patted. Good morning, Sleepy Sunny Puppy and Yoshin. I saw you lurk, and I hope you're enjoying your lurks. Good morning, Gibbets and Little Mouse. Good morning, Negro Ninja and Julia. Good morning, Sunny the Sunshine, Luna Ray and Tasha. Good morning, Kitty Goth and Ava and Spooky Nemi. Good morning, Kakashi's wife, Sarah, Welshie, the Badger Queen, and Little Spoke Paradise. Good morning, Kamimant, Imana, and Okami Mommy. Good morning, Okami Mommy. Good to see you back. Good morning, Meow Kitty Cat. Good morning, Sinful Microwave. Good morning, Yuri. Good morning, Mo Bear. Hello, Mo Bear. Good morning, Amelia and Sad and Poison. Good morning, Roxanne, Little Red Fox. I like that your name is Little Red Fox tonight. Good morning, Ariana. Good morning, Pinky. Hi, Pinky. Hello, my lovely little frog mod. Good morning, Indy. Good morning, Rookie. Good morning, Caitlin and SKZ Fan 20. Thank you for the hydrate. I am letting my tea heat up or saturate before I hydrate. Good morning, Alicia, Skona, and Cinder. Good morning, good morning, good morning. You should buy yourself an energy drink. There's my energy drink. I have my energy drink too, actually. It's a hydration-based energy drink. It's very nice. Pizza from scratch is so easy to do. Wolf Mother is a good band. Have you ever heard Wolf Mother? Oh, I love Wolf Mother so much. They do a song called something Egg. But they also do, well, my brain is gone. It's too early in the morning for my brain. I woke up with a nightmare today. I don't know what it was. I woke up with an awful garlic naan as pizza crust. Ooh. Oh, Wolf Mother's so good. So this pizza I made from like it's a one they throw in the oven, but I have made from scratch before. You can go if you want to go through my can pile. You can definitely go through and pick up all the tabs. But yeah, no, making from scratch is pretty easy once you figure out how to do the whole yeasty thingy. All right. I woke up with a nightmare today. I don't know what happened. My brain would not function when I was waking up. And suddenly it's kind of like panic attack situation where I'm trying to be like, hey, Alexa, stop doing your thing or whatever. I heard weird noises. And so I woke up and somehow my Alexa had moved from my normal rain noises that I always listen to ear licking ASMR. And so what I was hearing was all the slurping noises, and it gave me a nightmare. But now I'm okay. So that's good. Your family doesn't want to store about anything? Yeah, it was just like a lot of slurping noises, and my brain was like, no, this isn't, something's happening, what's going wrong? What is this? Escape from Duck Dove. Somebody made Tarkov, but it's ducks. It's a top-down duck survival game. I might need to play it. Do you know one of my favorite things, though? Have y'all ever seen the, yeah. I'm sorry you get nightmares every night. What's, brain. The guy who does, How It's Made, but it's like fake How It's Made. It's like, oh, and now it takes in 300 entries, just like your mother. I love him so much. Because apparently people will watch How It's Made to fall asleep. Huckabee. Yes, oh, I love Huckabee. I always wanted to. Or have you watched the, there's a guy who just tells you why certain animals are stupid. That one's good too. Being like, this animal sucks. it's like the most, like it's like the anti David Attenborough or Attenborough. They're so funny. We should watch those sometime. Maybe I'll do that tonight and after stream. Remember though, we're doing the little. Oh, today's Wednesday. Hello, Wednesday. Hello, Gene. It's me, Wednesday. Wednesday Adams. Oh no. Constant coughing. Ginger tea might be a little bit better, but neither of those. You want to add honey. If you have honey, add honey to it. If you don't have honey, maple syrup might work. You want something more just to coat your throat. I'll be around later because Wednesday is my D&D day. Listen to a guy who says Puma a million times to fall asleep last night. That's so weird. Anyways, the Puma thinks they're going to play Minecraft today. The Puma thinks it's been too long since we played Minecraft. Though the Minecraft 2 weeks might be over. Yes, that is the one, Sleepy. I love that video so much. I like the one where he talks about, like, yeah, some people fall asleep to things they end up on here, so I'm gonna scream right now. I need you all to pretend nothing happened, okay? 3, 2, 1, and he goes, ah. Oh, that's why Katamia hated me and wouldn't talk to me after stream. That's what it is. I watched Young Sheldon last night to feel safe. Honestly, a lot of those sitcoms are very, like, nice and they make you feel safe. I'm sorry to those people who live on the opposite side of the world from me. Because I know, like, it's nice to come listen to a streamer sometimes and you're just like, yay, I get to have a chill eepy stream here, isn't this the best? And my morning streams are just so fantastic to fall asleep to. But then you have to go to bed to me going, the boomer. Homeomorphic. Homeomorphic? Gay circles? Homeomorphic. Describing two mathematical objects like a shape or space that are topologically equivalent, meaning one can be continuously deformed, stretched, or bent to the other without tearing or gluing. Interesting. Nerds. That makes sense, Ava. Mm-hmm. Imagine my awful Solid Snake impression getting called BoJack Horseman. That's crazy. Grumble, 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 grumble. Oh. Can pile coming today, so we'll be getting rid of all the stickers, and then we'll have to earn new stickers. Get ready for that. I'm glad, Kakashi. I will say, if ever we do go full-time content creator, I will be, sleep well, Kami. Be good, okay? Okay, what if I do this? What if every 10 stickers, I'll turn it into a different kind of sticker, okay? And that way you can still have the sticker identity. Remember that the sticker was there. It might just be different color. Prettier stickers. So rude. My stickers are plenty pretty. Oh no, okay, but you'll earn more stars. Stars are the like stars mean level 1. Yeah. And so every 10 stickers, get a new one. And that way we can keep track of what I actually need. I actually owe you. Enjoy your class. Glad you're going to class. Remember, you're not allowed to skip my stream for classes. You are allowed to have a pizza for breakfast, though. Remember that. You are allowed to have a pizza for breakfast. This is very important to me that you know this. Can't see me. I don't want to stretch. I'm shrimping so hard right now. I don't want to stretch out my back. I am having pizza for every meal today, actually. You right about that. I'll make you a breakfast pizza. Hi, Scripps, by the way. Hello, Scripps. How'd you heat up your pizza? In the oven, that's why stream started late. I was sitting here looking at my pizza time, being like, how late can I start stream before people get upset so that I can make sure my pizza gets done. Oh, why do you have a... Miri, why do you have a thing against pizza? I will be eating pizza for every meal today. Can't stop me. No. Hello, Starnoxtus. Bana. Let's get my blocks here. I like pizza a lot. Culinary class, nice. Kind of bored of pizza? That's valid. Pizza is more of my, I want junk food, but I don't want to go order Uber because it's too expensive. So that's why I'll do pizza a lot of times. Get in the water. Get in the water. Do 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 do. Frozen pizza, nice. I wish I could. I want Little Caesars, is what I want. I want junk pizza. I want Taco Bell. But I have to drive to get Taco Bell because it's insanely expensive to get delivered. Spaghetti with veggies. Spaghetti veggie pizza. Have you had a spaghetti pizza? I'm about to introduce you to a culinary, like, insanity. Are you ready for this? So, when I was in college, I lived across from this pizza place. And the college had this weird deal, okay? Where, okay, well, here's another thing. I lived on campus, and for some reason they said, year one students need to have, 300 meals or whatever on their meal card, and they have to do blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So basically, they're expecting you to eat every single meal at the campus cafeteria, which I did for a while. But they also put on a fake money. They took your money, turned it into virtual dollars. They could then spend at local restaurants, but only at local restaurants. I feel like those restaurants made a deal with them or something. They get this privilege, and that's why they did it. Anyways, so, I went to this, good, I went to, this pizza place that was across the, way, and one day I noticed they had something that was a spaghetti pizza, so I ordered a spaghetti pizza, and it was like a tomato-ish, meaty, saucy, spaghetti put up on a thick crust pizza, and then across the pizza was layered a lattice of garlic knots, basically. So the stuff garlic knots is made out of, stretched in a lattice across the pizza to keep the spaghetti flat onto the pizza. You eat one slice of that, and it was like an entire day's worth of food. And oh, it was good. I didn't even do any, like, cannabis at the time, but I kind of wish I had, because I'm pretty sure it would have been, like, the greatest thing ever at the time. But it was so good. Oh, so good, so good, so good. I'd do it again. I'd do it again right now if I could. I'm considering trying to make it. But I would have to make, like, a garlic lattice. I'm proud of you, Nixie. Good job. Well done. Super proud. Super proud. Be a guest. Be a guest. I refuse stretching. You can't make me. There we go, I stretched. Oh, my back. I don't want to stretch. My back says no. We want to be shaped like a C today. Okay, I'll take care of myself. I should spend their money on comic money or comic. Huh? It's a golden apple. Or as I like to call it, a gapple. It's a gapple. Oh, my pizza's cool soon. I want to take a bite of pizza. Not that I have a pizza. Oh. What projects are you working on, by the way, if you don't mind me asking? See, that's a lovely thing. I'm so unmedicated, but my brain is too tired to be unfocused. I used to do that all the time when I wasn't medicated. I'd intentionally tire myself out so I could focus easier. Well, thank you so much, Loadim. By the way, on the 20th, we will finally be able to apply for partner. Can I get a round of applause for our amazing success? Woot. Oh, that is good tea. I'm drinking some of the tea my mother sent me. Yummy. Oh, very cool, Nixie. How do you get your nerves out? You jump and shake your whole body. And you get your body moving. If you're feeling nervous, you just need to try to get your body going. Activate a different part of your brain. Well, Partner's not going to be a full-time streamer. Partner's just going to show everybody else that Gene has the ability to stream good. Be a good boy. Be the goodiest boy. Ooh, we need this. I need this. It's very important to me I have this tree. The main reason why I want to get partner is because when I do become partner, I'll happily give you one of my teas. When I do become partner, the check mark will prove to brands that I exist as like a, decent content creator. And so they should believe that I can make things. And then we win. Yes. Oh, wait, they added spears. Yay. I can finally make spears, y'all. So excited. Yes, it does, but I mostly just want the seed. So I can make my... I thought that was a really skinny Enderman for a second. I don't need anything from a lush cave. Do I need anything from a lush cave? I don't think I need anything from a lush cave. Moss. I can get moss though. Oh, you're right. I could use a moss block. Moss is nice. Okay. Let's make a little space. Gunpowder. Mushrooms. Lodestones. Alright. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for the... No, I refuse to say that. I will refund you, but I will not say that. Sleep is very important. You need sleep. Wormy dirt. Dirt with the worms. Wormy dirt. Dirt with the worms. Wormy dirt. Dirt with the worms. Wormy dirt. Gene, will you tell me to not sleep? No. No. Too freaking bad. Sleep nerds. Will you disagree with your own philosophy that sleep is one of the most important things? I sleep at least. I sleep more than most people here. Pink, how much sleep did you get? Karame, how much sleep did you get? I would 100% fist fight you to get you to go to sleep. You got 10. Okay, fine. You win this game. Oh, that's annoying. I might... Oh. Shit, I might die. Ooh. Oh, I was one off. There we go. Okay, we're not going into the lush cave. I don't need it. I got maybe 6 hours of sleep if I'm 5 hours of sleep, which I know is more than I get sometimes. To be fair, I was spending a lot of time trying to fix my audio issue and found out, guess what? The cables I bought were made in an awful factory where everything was, you know, sacrificed. Flayed copper. No, Kadamiya, the copper is still bad. You can't fix that. It's badly built. I have to get new cables. I would have to learn how to, unless I want to like completely unwire it. I ordered new cables. Well, I ordered a new cable because I can only get one. I'll probably need to go to a guitar center or go to like some sort of music store to get the next cable. And I need 2 cables. I'm explaining why I didn't get any sleep, Kadamiya. Jeez, somebody's snippy today. Did you not get enough sleep? I also don't like spending $100 on cables. Thank you for the follow, Awakened Velvet, and thank you for the follow, Mizu. There's no bull to deal with. Still annoying. Still something I'm dealing with. It's still stressful. I do not play guitar. I have to go to Guitar Center to buy XLR cables. Mm-hmm. I own a guitar. Doesn't mean I play it. XLR cables are the cable we use for microphones. Are we just calling Kadamiya short because, I'm all for that? Kadamiya? Somebody bought me a bass last night on stream. Which you would have known. A pink bass. An electric bass. Do you know how to skateboard? Skateboard. They did buy me the pink one. I'm excited. Get out of the boat. Honey, I don't want to leave you behind. You're coming with me. As it should. That is the goal. Thank you for the month. Make a fool out of yourself. The only way that you learn how to do anything is by making a fool of yourself. I think the reason why adults especially don't end up learning a lot is because they're too worried about what other people are going to think about them. Why don't you have a guitar anymore? Oh, well. Hopefully you'll get a move out soon. Families never get why their family never wants to see them anymore. And it's like, you did all this shit, what do you think? Sorry, I forgot I swore. Well, they want to kill me, so whether or not I want to kill them, I don't really have much of a choice. Hello, Misaki. Oof, oof. Oof. No. Murder ain't cute. No, this is why you need to not. The second you start using something that somebody else has, and you do better with it than them, they just want to sell it. Why would you ever be sorry that you need to? Y'all know your life doesn't have to revolve around me, right? I mean, it should. I didn't know you play guitar, Kadamiya. That's very cool. Wait, you're doing what? You're putting me on a pin? Oh, that's adorable. I think you have like enamel pins made. One of my many goals. Glad you're getting your stream streak back. Bro, stop shooting me. No, my leg. Whatever they're called. Enjoy your legs. No, your finances are on vacation. No, you get it. That makes sense to me. Plinkety plink, you should plink more. Okay, good with the plinks. Anybody can learn hand coordination or not. They were that pets. I've seen people with like my excuses. I have German fingers. I have thick fingers, so they're always in there. They're shorter. Like I have a large palm, shorter fingers, and so I've always used that as an excuse not to be able to play instruments. But then I've seen people with tiny hands doing amazing. Good morning, Ren. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And I run out of excuses. Then you see a guy with one hand play guitar better than I ever could, and then I run out of even more excuses. Camel, I want a camel. Wake up. Grab a brush. They used to have electronic tuners. That's what I used to use. I used to use a little electronic tuner. I played way. Ooh. Tempo. Piano's thing I'd like to learn as well. I keep thinking about telling my music teacher to teach me piano, but I'm like, I want to learn how to sing first. Let's get all the singing done. Then I'll learn like guitar, and then I'll get good at everything else. I got you, so that makes sense. Gives me very hippie vibes, the djembe. You'll be good. It's gonna go well. You got this. I believe in you. Shabum, 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 shabum. Wow, there's nothing in here. Honestly, I think the TNT might be worth more. That's kind of funny. It's really not necessary, honestly. Singing coach or anything. Let me out. Bye, Sinful Joa. Oh, well, that's going to be learning control, and that's going to be just from practicing. There's only so much that they can do. You need to practice the basic control first. Work on getting airflow. And then you should be good. There's not knowledge to technique when it comes to the starting of air control and stuff. The beginning is always just kind of playing with it. At least that's been in my experience. I get you, Sagana. I will stop talking about it. We'll call it an end here. Rather not talk about it anymore then. Bah. Hello, Echo. How you doing? Hi, Bella. I'm doing alright. Just a little tired. Preserve a gingerbread house. Are you doing one of those gingerbread kits? I've done those before. I like the gingerbread kits. I did those a long time ago. Oh, and where are you from, Kiwi? Well, this is one of 2 streams I do daily. If you like higher energy, I guarantee it'll be more of your vibe later on today. This morning it's just chill, hanging out. Poodles can be cute, and I hear they can also be very mean. I don't know why. Poodles are barely mean. Where's a golden doodle? Have fun, kitchen witch, chicken witch. Oh, that's the game I need to play. I need to remember to add that to my list. There's a game where you can be the Baba Yaga, or something similar to the Baba Yaga. You gotta go around in a little chicken-legged thing. Oh, there's so much I need to do, y'all. Why is there always more things to do and never less? Oh, a golden doodle is a mix between a golden retriever and a poodle. Or oftentimes just called a doodle because it's mixed between a golden retriever and a poodle. Yeah, doodles are mixed. Which is funny, because you'd think a golden doodle would retrieve a doodle. You'd think that a golden doodle would have like a golden temperament to be a lot more friendly, But apparently they're still mean. A bulldog and a shih tzu? Oof. What, a ditsu? Bultsu. Any mix with a poodle? That makes sense. A labradoodle. I've heard of those. Those are also very popular. The only thing I like about doodles in general, at least poodles, is that they don't have fur. Technically. They have hair. Which is why they are hypoallergenic. Hi, sheep are tight. You know what I love? I like Great Danes a lot. You did, Bella. You did. Great Danes are so cool. They're so big. They're big boys. Economy, that's really not that hard, is it? I'm sure there's some children who are as big as you are. I like Great Danes that are really clumsy, but like to lay on you. I like hairless cats. I know people think hairless cats are ugly, but I love hairless cats because they're so cuddly and cute. I would have one out when I'd, especially when I wear my fuzzy sweater. They would just like crawl up on me and just like lay right against my neck. Though my ex at the time was very allergic to cats, right? And we went to go stay at her parents' place to look over the cats. Yeah, that's right. She went to go take care of her family's cats that she's heavily allergic to. And the whole night, these cats, especially the ones with a lot of the fur, would come and crawl up on her neck and just lay there. And we'd take the cat and we'd throw it out of the room and it'd immediately come back and lay on her neck again. It's like they picked the one person they know can't handle them unless maybe her allergic reaction made it so that, you know, she got warmer. I will also not go into certain parts of the school because of the ghosts. But it was this worst thing. Like all night, we finally got to the point where we just had to throw the cat out and be like, yo, kitty cat, you're not allowed to open this door. I don't know why it took us all night to realize that we could just, you know, close the bedroom door. For some reason, it was that part that kept us stumped the longest. I've heard of that. I'm just gonna start feeding things to cats and see what makes them non-allergenic. Hey cat, try eating this. What is it? A battery. It might make you less allergy. Yeah, why is here kind of a constant electrical charge? I've been feeding it watch batteries to see what would happen. Yeah, no more allergies. It's also dead. Afraid one won't like the other. That makes sense. I think it's something to do with them looking like snakes. To be fair, though, so you put a random long, dark green object behind me at any point in time, I'd probably freak out too. So he's just like, hey, look at that thing that's behind you. Like, oh, what is it? Oh, it's a... I wish when that trend had been around to, expose your cats to cucumbers, people had done it to people too, and just see that, like, people just freak out when there's a random long green thing behind them. Especially small people, because they think they might get eaten. I need to go see if most short people are afraid of anacondas. Thank you for the follow, greatly appreciated. Welcome to the menagerie. Short people who are... Thank you for the follow, delusional. 5-2 peeps. How do you all feel about anacondas? Neat from a distance. What about up close? Anyone under 5'2", how do you feel about anacondas? Okay. Who's 5'2"? Like half of chat. I want to do a poll. Here we go. Alright, let's see how tall chat is. Honey Bunch, it's almost like there's a 5'2" and up category. There's 5'2" to 5'9", and there's under 5'2". You can't be 5'2" and under 5'2". Enjoy your college. Then you're under 5'2". That is how that works. Hmm. 5'2" to 5'9". Y'all a bunch of medium-sized mofos. Oh, look at him with the spear. It's so intimidating, actually. Give me your spear. Give. And you'll learn how to spear. Hmm. if I was a spear, how'd I be made? I'm like spot on 5'12", almost 6 foot. I'm pretty sure 5'12" is 6 foot. Unless somebody taught me something wrong. I am spot on 6'4". 5 foot here, nice. Ooh, boo, 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 boo. If you want to be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. Taking this too easy. But you know so don't go wasting. Oh, they finally. Okay, they have all the copper tools. Do what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really want. I really want a zig. It's spear time. Now what is this? I'm trying to figure out how this alternative mode works. Oh, I just... Yeah, I don't understand it. I'm so confused. Look at that range, though. We'll figure it out later. So don't go wasting my precious time. Okay, if I do... So just like walk towards them? My LA. There's one left. Well, I have one left. Enjoy your rest. Be good. Oh, we're heading home. We went all the way out there to find the stronghold, and a woodland mansion, because I'd never seen one before. And we did. I got nothing that I wanted. So now we're still heading home. I'm glad you have pizza. I'm proud of you. I'm gonna fall in the snow, aren't I? Death is coming. Wait. I don't know. What is this doing? Was that damage? Fuck. I didn't take any damage. I'm so confused. Hmm. Hmm. Hello. Good morning. What do I want to do? Oh no, but all my Vexes have died now. I only have one left. They keep dying to creepers. Creepers are so mean. But at least we have the one. I almost regret going to this place, by the way. Because, like, there was no point. We went all the way out there and didn't get anything. Some random junk. I mean, at least it was an adventure, but I forgot how far we traveled. That was crazy. It was like half an hour. It was like multiple hours. Now I'm trying to make it all the way back home. Yeah, if I can make bread at home, I think this is bread I brought with me. Hey, look, marvelous. Look at them guys. Look at those guys. So, guys. How you doing, Alexander? Bro, shame, right? Like, if I'd gotten at least one totem, that would have been nice. Not even one. Yeah, but we didn't make any friends. All my friends that I made died. We only have one left. Ironically, it's the one carrying the axe. What's that? What is that? Well, friendly Maloney, exactly. I killed a Invoker and I didn't get one. So, no. I think I got something enchanted off of it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the stretch. Oh, hey, look, Mushroom Island. We actually have leads now. Kaname, this is for you. I'm gonna get you a mushroom. Oh, that's dumb. Maybe something took it. Bye bye. Alright, let's go get Kaname. This time we have leads, so I'll actually take cut on the air with those. Hi, how you doing, let me make like a pain, but shoot. You're kidding me. It's like the leads are in the bottom of this bag. There it is. Mm. 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 Nice. Vanya, I love Vanya. Come with me. Into the boat. In the boat. In the boat. Okay. Good boy. Or girl. I don't know what they identify as here. There you go. Money, money, must be fun. Let's not get too close. Oh, I know where we are now. This is like the halfway point, isn't it? Money, 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 must be fun. Banana. Alright, I can do something. Why'd you just point at the money and laugh at it? Ha ha ha, look at you, your money. Goofy money. Crazy. That's so dumb. That is so dumb. Silly. Absolutely silly Maxon. Scrooge McDuck just going, I am such a good donkey. There you go. If I was rich, I wouldn't tell anybody, but y'all would know. Good morning, Kuronako. How you doing? Good morning, good morning, good morning. My ankle hurts. Stop that. Get some help. Preferably a doctor. If you were rich, what would be the one thing that people would be like, I don't know if he won the lottery, but I think he might have won the lottery? Did man just woke up? I mean, pretty much. I woke up very recently. I've not been awake for long. Oh, well. Did you twist your ankle? Hello, cow. Ascent school? What's Ascent school? Mod move. Ooh, thank you so much for the redeem. Yeah, it did not delusional. Yeah, I would, I feel like my life would massively change if I won the lottery. Yeah, it is 4:58 a.m. right now. I would get a new place. I would buy a place out in the country somewhere where I could make sure that it was far enough away that I wouldn't have to deal with a lot of people, close enough that I could still get deliveries of things. With stable internet. Stable internet is a must. I'd spend probably a month, 3 months, getting every medical test so I could feel better about myself. Yes, it's 4:50 a.m. I wake up at 3:30 a.m. every morning. And after that, Alex, you might be surprised, but America is on the other side of the world from you. I probably solve homelessness in the nearest city, just to prove it can be done with enough money. But you don't want to do immigration again. Valid. What's a linear city? What do you mean? No, I said if I won the lottery, I'd try to eliminate homelessness in the nearest city. A group of Batmans, an orphanage, not Batmans. The fact that you can have multiple Batmans is worrying. That's fine. I've noticed, Katamia. Did you not sleep enough? What happened? How much sleep did you get? You didn't fall asleep at your desk, did you? Valid. Cats can be so annoying sometimes. Why are you meowing? That is a leash. Yes. I thought it was funny. Oh, my jaw just popped. Well, go get some food then. Don't be hungry here. Rude. What time is it? Yeah, I might try to see if I can get a little nap before work. I'm feeling extra tired right now. I think the nightmare really took it out of me. Oh, I'm sorry, Arya. You're the only adult who can cook, but they don't leave. Oh, I'm such a good doggy. I think I'll call it here. Oh, we're like halfway there. Whoa, living on a prayer. Yeah. I mean, as long as you boat fast enough. There are the drowned and they can come eat you. But they currently are not. Well, thank you all for hanging out. It's always really appreciated. Y'all are very lovely. I have no one to raid. What the heck? Apple VTuber? I have no clue what the heck that was. Even Shrimps is offline. Oh, Shrimps is online. Little Pocky isn't online. How can I raid them? Wait, is there a different Little Pocky? Yeah, we'll raid Shrimps. Y'all say hi to Shrimps. Be good, lovelies. I'll see you all later. Topography to go live right now. I mean, they'd also need to be doing ASMR. I don't think they want to do that. Bye, lovelies. Thank you all for hanging out. I'm gonna get some sleep.